Okay, I think it's about time that we began. Um, so let's get it rolling. Before we um start the questioning, I just want to take a couple of a few minutes to kind of discuss why we are here today. So Rhemma Consult is a consultant firm that helps and have helped a lot of people with immigration, both NIW and EB1A. And today we have one of the clients that we worked closely with. He has a very long name, and we came to an agreement that I would call her Dr. G. So she's comfortable with me calling her Dr. G because that's how I call her throughout our conversation. So today we have Dr. G here who would be kind of sharing some of her experience as a way to serve as inspiration and motivation if you are going through this process. It's the immigration problem is a little bit cumbersome and a lot of information are out there. So hopefully this video, as it's being recorded today, serves as information for those who will be watching it today and in the future as well. So basically, that's why we are hosting this interview today. And before we begin, we do have a channel. So in case you just want to check out some of the past success story and some of the information we have out there, I'm putting that as well in the chat for everyone to also kind of get a sense of it in case you want to reach out. So I just put in the YouTube channel, and then if you decide to reach out for whatever reason, also putting out the information and how you can reach us as well. Okay. The structure of this interview basically follow that we do the question and answering, and then at the end of the meeting, if you have any follow-up question, if it is reasonable within time and I can touch base on it, I'll be more than happy to do that. But basically, that would be the structure of the interview today. So without wasting much time, let's get it rolling. So I have a couple of questions. So how do you feel about before I start all my questions, maybe Dr. G, just tell us something little about yourself that you want to share with the group today.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Gaganpreet Kaur, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Brigham and Women Hospital, Harvard Medical School, doing research in cardiovascular diseases. And being an Indian national, uh, my NIW was done way earlier, but then anybody Indian here would know that EB2 just does not give a easy green card for Indians. So I was always interested in EB1. And whenever I talk to all the lawyers, the quickest response I got that my profile is not there yet. But I feel like I never bent down. I wanted to get it. So here we are. And we can discuss more on the questions then.
Sounds good. So thank you. And if you are just joining, and in case you don't have a preview of some of the reasons or some of the things that Dr. G said was, currently there is an issue of a lot of backlogs. In fact, now it's even for everyone. But it is really worse for people that come from India, China, Mexico, and Philippines. And so Dr. G comes from India, and I think for NIW, no one should quote me on this, it's recorded, but I think it's about 12 to 13 years. I may have to just check, but it is really a long time, at least 10 years if you're going through the NIW.
Almost 12 years.
Yes, good, good. And then for EB1, it's even longer for them as well. For people from India, it's about 3 years from right. Yeah. So is it 3 years now? I haven't checked the most
2 years.
current.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
3 years, I think. No,
yeah.
because March 2021.
Yes,
March
yes.
20.
So it's about 3 years. So regardless of which route, it's still a wait. But of course, the EB one is much of a shorter wait because 3 years is shorter than 12 years. So that gives you an idea of what she meant. And so that is why we are here today. So let's start by asking, how do you feel about the approval notice, and are you satisfied with this outcome?
I would say my only feeling is relieved because a lot of people told me I can't get it just because how where my profile was. So I think I'm just relieved. And yes, I'm definitely satisfied. I think our work, our hard work together, paid off. So yeah, very
Sounds good.
satisfied with it.
Yeah, it sounds good. But how did you learn about Rhemma Consult?
I remember I saw one of your post, your own success story on LinkedIn, and that's how I started following you and your channel. But I think by that time I had already hired my lawyers. Like I had just started working on my EB1 petition that time, and then I saw your story. So it was like quite interesting to see, like, although lawyers kept saying that your citations are too low. But then I saw your story that you did with almost no citations at all. So, that's when I started following you. It just like
Yeah,
popped on my LinkedIn. So,
yeah. Yeah, and just for clarification, I don't take pride in this. I still don't have citation, and part of it is simply because of the area of research I find myself in. Purely in a math education research, and most of my studies are used in the classroom setting. So for someone like me, it's quite unreasonable to ask for citation. So I still don't have, and I've helped a lot of clients that do not have citations for whatever reasons. And so, yes, definitely, I did go through the process myself some years ago, with no citations, got approval for both EB1 and NIW. So definitely, that rings a lot of bell. But fine, you did know about my post, my success story. But what influenced you to still go ahead to choose Rhemma Consult?
so like, as soon as I got my RFE and my lawyer saw who the immigration officer is, so apparently they absolutely have no success with him. And they were like, yeah, you should withdraw your case. That's your best chance here. So I was like, okay, especially I did it in my premium processing. So I paid extra $2,500. And as a postdoc, that's like, almost my monthly salary. So it's like, I don't want to waste till the time I like, I want to try everything what's out there. So I decided to reach out to you. And I think what influenced me choosing you was like from very first meeting, which was, I think, was just a consultation meeting. It was not even like our like RFE, like, work. It was just a consultation. I had sent you my RFE, my petition, and my recommendation letter. I felt that with Rhemma Consultant, my case will get a lot more personalized, attention. And I think that was the and other thing you had asked me to ask my lawyers that what are they going to change, and they told me they are just going to update my citations for my next petition, like, if even if I withdraw and refile it. And when I got back to you, then you suggested that you will be on mercy of my like, if I'll just not change anything on my current petition and submit the next one, then I'm literally at the mercy of the next officer. So, that conversation, like, and personalized attention. I think those were two things which influenced me to choose your consultancy.
Glad you did because I'm excited, and I would like to say myself, when I was trying to get a lawyer, I also got similar responses, even for NIW, that I wasn't quite there yet. And I think most of it has to do with the types of cases lawyers wants to do. But today is about you, so I'm really glad that you did decide to go with Rhemma. So I guess now, what were some specific factors or features that really stood out to you throughout our conversations? I think we started working from December, if I'm right, and I think we finished up sometime in did we submit before February? I think so, yes. Or
I
right in
think
February.
it like first week or like second week of Feb, like very early in the February I submitted it. So the factors, like again, the first thing is like I have like a comparison here how my lawyers handle my case versus you. So very personalized, like attention, and how you tailored case to my like credentials, like rather than just a templated version which my lawyers had. And they just like, it felt like with them there was a very templated petition and they just filled some of my information, but with you it really helped me highlight my credential, like all the things specific to my area of research, how I'm different than other researchers. And another thing I would say was the positive attitude. Not, I'm not talking about, not necessarily here about your confidence in my credential, but like, despite being there was such a negative push from my lawyers, you always like, try to come up with a way that we can still work with them, like because I never withdraw the case from them, so like still you always kept that attitude, okay, let's maybe we try to do this or do that, and still yeah, kind of work with lawyers. And I think those were the two major and third I would say deadlines, because if I don't have deadlines, I am pretty lazy person. So since you kept me like, okay, we have to meet every Monday or we have to meet every Friday, so that really helped me, like, okay, have to, like, these were the some of the factors I think really
Yeah,
stood out to me.
definitely
Yeah,
that
and like I also want to give one more example, actually two things. So like one of my paper is like, editor choice. Lawyers were like, oh, this is not important, but then you really helped me how I can include that in my citation as a very objective evidence. And then I was invited in a couple of like, meetings as a speaker. Like it was not like, as a student or as a trainee, but those were like, and my lawyers were like, every researcher go to the meetings, what's different here, but you really helped me put that, like outshine that things as well, so
definitely. So
yeah.
for those of the people here who are considering doing this whole process, can you tell us some projects you've worked on and what we decided to use as a strategy for this whole EB1? And because we know that for EB1, there are 10 things of which we have to show at least 3 things and then make a final merit determination that the person falls within a very top 10% in their specific field of niche. So can you share some highlights on what what the lawyer started with and then how Rhemma Consult came in and what are some of the things that we discussed?
Yeah, sure. So with my lawyers, I claimed 3 categories. One was that I have artist like scholar publications, which I think as a PhD or as a researcher, which is pretty straightforward because you can show your peer-reviewed publication. Second was I have acted as a judge, so which was also like um approved, like I didn't get RFE on that, and which was pretty easy because I had reviewed a lot of like manuscripts for different journals. So the third category where I actually got my RFE was outstanding. I even forgot what the whole category is it like a major contribution of major significance, right? So that's where my RFE was. What my lawyers based my petition was on the impact factor. So they started with the impact factor. Okay, she published in, for example, Blood, and this is like a #1 journal in hematology. So their focus was on impact factors, or their focus was on how many citations I have. Like I think I had 15 citations when I submitted. So whole point, like their uh focus on those two things, impact factor and citations. And that is exactly my RFE claimed. They said, like, my RFE literally said, okay, you are not telling how this citation are like, how this citation means that you are majorly significantly contributing to the field. So I think with Rhemma Consultant, what I did, I split my work into, like, although my overall work is on like a cardiovascular diseases, But then I have some glycobiology work, which is pretty niche field. So I think we put like part one as a glycobiology, and then I did some stroke work. And then I think we did not talk about impact factor and number of citation at all in my RFE response. So what we did, we started with some background information. So like one of my project in diabetes. So we explained how diabetes in US, so that like, the officer can know that this work is really impactful for the US. Then we started with some research gap, like, okay, what is different in my studies, like, what's not known and how my studies are filling this, uh, like these gaps. And third, and the most important thing was showing the major, like, significance. And there we did talk about my citation, again, not the number of citation, but how people have used my work. And instead of using words like, okay, this paper has cited my work, this paper has used like this, we use that my work has aided in clinical studies or preclinical studies, or my work has health impact. So I feel like these heavy words, rather than just using words like citation, like, I think that was like something different and very useful, I would say, for my RFE response. And of course, the fourth category, I don't know if you want me to talk about it because it's your business at the end of the day. So I'll let you talk about it. But there's another fourth category, which Emmanuel helped me put together all the evidence. And I showed it to my lawyers, and my lawyers was like, oh, you're not going to qualify for this one as well. So that was really funny. So, but Emmanuel, I'll let you decide if you want to talk here or not, because, it's the end of the
Definitely.
day, everyone's
De-
confident.
definitely. So, just to give you a little bit of background, Dr. G, and she's giving me the permission to call her Dr. G. Dr. G, came in with an RFE from her previous lawyer, and the RFE basically accepted two requirements of the three that she initially submitted. The two that were accepted were evidence of publications, peer-reviewed publications. She's had wonderful publications. They also accepted her work as judging the work of others, which is also the reviewer role. They accepted both of them. They did not accept the third one that the lawyers had helped her make, which is basically original contributions of major significance. So that was what the RFE was about. And so that is how I met I saw the document, and I looked at it and I was like, no, I think we missed a very important thing in the whole RFE. And part of it was there was too much emphasis on impact factor and all of those things, right? Those things are great, but I think in general, um, there wasn't a great job done with explaining the impact of each of her research and how that makes her to be within the top 10% of her field. That wasn't in the original petition at all. So when I saw that, I agreed with the officer. I didn't think the officer was unreasonable. I thought the officer was very, very reasonable. I agreed with everything the officer said, because yes, there was nothing inside that really was fleshing out what made Dr. G exceptional in the top 10%, right? And so that was the first issue that I saw. So Dr. G and I kind of agreed and developed a personalized template where we could discuss how we would show the impact and what really makes her to be within the top 10%. Um, and that being said, I definitely knew that she's a postdoc at HMS and in Harvard as well. And I was like, well, there's a fourth criteria that we can make a very strong case for, which is, and if you're considering this, it's one of the things that you should really consider, because it is actually that the petitioner has performed in a critical role or in a leading role in a distinguished organization. So that is one criteria we decided to add as a new evidence, because initially that was not added. Why did we decide to add this? One, because that the criteria I mentioned, that is performance of a critical role, leading role in a distinguished organization is actually a two-in-one criteria. First, we have to show that the person has performed in a critical role, and then in the organization the person is, the unit, the department, it has a distinguished reputation because most of the times all the petitioners think of that role for just CEOs or just high um, those in the C-suite to qualify for this criteria. But on the contrary, there is actually an or here. It's a critical or leading role, right? So maybe a director would be a leading role, maybe a CEO would be a leading role, but you could also have a very critical role in a distinguished organization. So we actually picked the critical role that Dr. G was playing within the HMS, that is the Harvard Medical School. And some of the things we highlighted was her critical role in federally funded projects. This, which is really helping the mission of HMS. So maybe Dr. G speak a little bit to some of the critical role that we highlighted throughout the process.
Yeah, sure. So I kept it very specific to my lab. So what are the uh skills I got into the lab? So I like sat down, I thought, okay, what was not being done in my lab? So for example, uh bioinformatics, like not necessarily hardcore bioinformatics, but for like mass spectrometry data and stuff. I think I'm going too much into science, but still just some kind of a data analysis. I would say my boss used to send it outside the lab all the time to some collaborators, or he to hire proper or hardcore bioinformaticians. But ever since I joined the lab, I had little bit some skills in data analysis. So I use that, and ever since I joined my lab, so I've been doing that on all the projects. So that is like one example I specifically gave. And there was another project where we needed some kind of a virus. It was just not commercially available. So I collaborated with somebody, we made it in-house and everything. So those were like some things I basically I sat down and like really tried to highlight what was not being done in this lab before I joined. So those were the two things. And thankfully my boss, he's helpful, so he also agreed to actually attest to all of these things. So I think that's pretty much it we put. And I had done a little bit work in Harvard Innovation Lab, so I highlighted that as well.
Definitely, definitely. And I think you're forgetting some of the projects that you did was also funded by NIH,
Yes,
which is really important.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like all my knock on the wood, like our lab is federally funded for now. So I did highlight that for each specific example, I did given linked it to one kind of a federal grant. I think I put like three federal grants there and try to highlight what X skill set specifically I am bringing to the lab.
definitely. When Dr. G was talking, she kept, I'm beginning to talk, going too much into science. And yes, that is where Rhemma Consult comes in and really help flesh out, not to say that we're taking the science component of it, but how will somebody who doesn't know anything about her research just read it for the first time on the fly and understand what Dr. G is doing? I think that is really very critical because most of these officers do not have a domain knowledge in your specific niche. You are telling them what you are doing. So there is supposed to be a blend between how very scientific you go and how very layman you go, just to make a connection between the impact of some of these things. So yeah, that was one criteria we decided to add as a new evidence because Dr. G was doing a splendid and was playing a very pivotal role in her lab. And so that was one of the things that we really highlighted to be able to show the officer that, hey, apart from the three things, we actually think there is a fourth one, which is the fact that Dr. G is playing a very critical role in a distinguished organization. And if you're considering using this particular criterion, it's really important that you go really specific about what were your roles in these projects and how these roles are crucial to the missions of the organization you find yourself in. And it's not, you don't just end there. You need to take it one step. What makes this organization distinguished? What is the reputation of this organization you are? And I just want to say that yes, Dr. G is in Harvard, so Harvard is Harvard, right? But you can be in a different institution, like anywhere, and you can still highlight the distinguished argument of wherever institution you are, right? And I remember so many years ago, what I did was also used the critical role as part of the criterions I had used. I used three, and it was publications. I've served as a judge of the work. I've judged the work of others, and then I used the critical role, and it was one of the things. And I was in the University of Nebraska Lincoln back then. It is not Harvard, but it's University of Nebraska Lincoln. And even with that, I was in a unit within the University of Nebraska Lincoln. So I had to really talk about what makes that unit within the university really having a distinguished organization. So really talking about, and I was just a postdoc, right? I was just a postdoc as well in that unit. So if you are thinking about this is also a possibility. It's not just for those with directors positions or director title. And if you have those position titles, usually it's very easy to make it. But of course, if you are still a researcher, you could really talk about what makes your role critical. And I would really want to say that we've even helped a student, Rhemma Consult have helped a student make that case, just a PhD student who had not even finished his degree, because if you are playing a critical role, it doesn't matter your title, right? It's really about, is it a critical role? Can the head of department or head of unit, wherever you are, attest to it? And if they can, then USCIS really holds it high esteem, because then the big guys are saying that of course the petitioner is doing that, so they would have to take the word for that. And of course, like really showing evidence that it is not just about you playing that critical role, but um, even amongst your colleagues, there is something that makes you outstanding from your colleagues as well. So those leveraging those unique skills that you possess, and how those unique skills is really critical to the organization or the unit, because you may not be working for the whole organization, a unit within an organization, and taking it step forward to explain why that unit really is distinguished. So that was one of the things that we added, and then we submitted the case. And so I guess I would ask you that, how do you feel about the whole timeline of the write-up and the timeliness as far as the write-up was concerned?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, it's a lot of work, but I feel satisfied with it. Like, especially after my experience with lawyers, I feel like I'm glad I did it, and like then you helped me organize it. So that's definitely, and especially with your deadlines, I was pretty satisfied. I was not keeping anything to the last minute. I was finishing it up. And because especially as we worked on RFE comes with a deadline of 60 days, and including I had to post them at least 2 weeks in advance and everything. So I was pretty satisfied with it. Yeah. And I think we went back and through at least 4 times, like the whole petition. So that was like that is something my lawyers probably would never have done it, or I don't know. So it's just my experience with my lawyer. So I don't want to say much things about them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that you give us a try. And I I remember that at the point yourself, I don't know if you were considering withdrawing from the RFE itself. At least I thought you did, because in our conversation you said I don't mind withdrawing and waiting for a while for my citations to build up or something. I remember you said that, and I'm glad you didn't, and then give it a
Yeah,
try.
so I was considering withdrawing because given the history of my lawyers with this particular officer who generated this RFE, and now if I think it's maybe just the strategy of my lawyers because my citation number remains the same. Only thing we changed was make it very tailored to my skill set. For example, glycobiology. I have worked a lot on glycobiology. It's a pretty niche field. I mean, there are a lot of people with the very high citation numbers, but I also know a lot of other postdocs who have similar citations like me, and they got it. So I really highlighted, I think we put almost 2 pages showing that how glycobiology is a niche and very highly specific field. And we also got a testimony letter as well, to attest that it's just not me saying it, that other people in the field also agree to whatever I'm trying to claim in my petition. And I think, and then my lawyers, they try to summarize everything in 3 lines. So yeah, so that was also another thing. So
Yeah, definitely. And I know that part of the concerns you had was getting letters from independent writers, which is awesome. But can you also share light on the fact that there were times that we had to take letters from people you still had affiliations with, but still provided a letter that still spoke to the fact that your research is really impactful and you really fall within the top 10% of your niche?
sorry, I think I missed your question. So are we
Yeah.
talking about
So
recommendation letters?
yes, we are talking about recommendation letters. When there was a concern that I need, I think when you came in, you kept emphasizing of that. I need letters from independent people, and I have somebody from Harvard who is willing to write it. But should we accept it? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So in my original petition, I had sent 5 letters. Uh, I think none of them went through Harvard. So because I'm a pretty new postdoc, only little bit over almost 18 months now. But my publication from my postdoc are in press right now, they are not out. So nothing for my Harvard work was even included in my original petition, so I had no recommendation letters related to Harvard work or anybody from the Harvard. So I think one of the letter, which was like a dependent letter, so with my lawyers, they were like, you need to have independent letters. By independent letters, I mean people who I have never worked with. So to show that my work is universally known, it's universally important. So that was I was trying to emphasize that I can't use anybody from the Harvard because I work from the Harvard. So because the lawyer strictly said any institution you are working right now or you have worked, you just cannot use those letters because that will suggest that your work is just known in the institutions you have worked with. But I'm glad I took your advice, and I actually included, I think, 2 letters from the Harvard for my RFE. And
Definitely.
for, I think, yes, so we were talking for original petition, I had 5 petition. One came from the Louisiana State University, where that's where I did my PhD, and 4 came from outside the US. And but in my RFE, 3 of them came from US, 2 from Harvard, 1 from Florida.
Definitely.
So nothing was even outside the US for my RFE.
Definitely. Um, for those who may be considering using Rhemma Consult, can you share any particular aspect of the services from Rhemma that exceeded your expectations? And can you highlight some of these things? And that would be very helpful for those who would intend to either use or even go ahead with this process on their own.
Yeah, again, I would highly, say this aloud, that personalized attention. So, like, you never gave me, okay, this is the template, that's how you prepare it. And if you don't have this information, your case is weak. So, I think our first meeting when I actually hired your consultancy, that, okay, let's go ahead with RFE response. I think the first meeting we just discussed my like research, what kind of citations I have, because that's how we're gonna go for my implementation of my work. And then what really stood out to me, like instead of writing, okay, this review paper cited her work or this research paper cited her work, using these terms like, okay, her work aided in clinical research or her work aided in a preclinical research. Because I feel like if I look as from a layman lenses, I don't even, they won't probably won't even know what the research paper is or what a review paper is, but like there is a good chance they'll know what clinical study means, or like they will know it's like a little bit more important or something to do with humans. So I think those were the terms really stood out to me. And again, we did not talk about the citations because, especially when my RFE is clearly saying that, okay, we don't need to see impact factor or site number of citations, then my lawyers were like, no, we need to put it. So I think that you also helped, basically Rhemma Consultancy helped me to address every single point in my RFE. Instead of fighting the RFE, what I feel like my lawyers were trying to fight the RFE. They were like, okay, you are stupid. No, this is really important. You helped me to okay, let's try to answer each and everything. And again, very personalized, like you helped me put like all the importance of glycobiology, how it is niche. And I'm just thinking, even with stroke, we split the work. Like for example, one of my paper was cited in up to date website. It's like the website used by clinicians, so we really highlighted that as well, to just to show there is importance, there's a clinical importance of my work as well. Although even if because although if I don't have a patent yet, or there's no drug on my work yet, but then still it has some kind of implementations. And then of course we had health benefits and clinical studies.
Definitely. One of the things that you said that I was happy that you mentioned was the fact that I didn't provide you with any templates. I personally think once I start providing clients with templates, then there is no uniqueness in whatever you're going to end up with, because every research is unique. Trust me, every research is unique, and so there is no one way of making a case for everyone. It's not possible. Even if, let's say, you're on this call and then you come for the service of Rhemma, I would still take you as a new person, understand what you're doing, and kind of devise a strategy on how we can make a strong case. So yes, I'm not a big fan of templates, write a letter in this way. No, that way you lose the original and the uniqueness of every researcher that comes in, because the field that Dr. G is working in is different from the field that someone else is working in. So there's no one cut way of doing it. So definitely thank you for bringing those things up. Um, I always
Also,
say, okay, go for it.
I also want to highlight, even in my recommendation letters, I think that made it pretty strong. You suggested to add, okay, how the work is important to the mission of their department or mission of their lab, instead of just writing, okay, I used in my review paper, or I used this work in my research paper. So, I think we use pretty strong words. Okay, this work or her was really important for the mission of my department, which is to find cure for cardiovascular diseases. I think information was there, but just you help to put in a little bit more layman or a more important manner, I would.
Definitely, definitely. And that also really helps to show that your work is really making a great impact beyond the lab of one person who has cited your work, right? So, and that is definitely true. And I think what some of the things we also highlighted is really dedicating the first paragraph of the letter to really making the letter writer discuss who the writer is, right? So what are some of the pivotal things the writer have been doing? What are some of the projects he has done? What are some of the things that makes the writer an expert, right? Because those things are really critical. You don't, or you should not assume that once you get a letter from somebody, the officer would know everything about it. So usually one of the things we helped craft was the fact that the very first paragraph should really talk about why should we listen to anything that the writer is about to say? What makes the writer an expert? Like, for example, has the writer done some publications? Have the writer been invited for different conferences? Have the writer even worked on any federally funded project, right? So it kind of give an idea of who the writer is, so that if the writer is saying something, we know the impact of what the writer is doing in the research and in the field. So definitely those are some specific things that you get to use when you decide to go with Rhemma consulting firm. So I would say, would you recommend the services of Rhemma to any friend that you have or to any family member? I always use family member, just to make sure that you will do that. So I would like you to answer that question.
Absolutely, yes. And I think I have already recommended to at least three of my friends who might have already reached out to you. So,
Definitely, definitely. In
like,
as
as soon
much
as I got my approval, I sent a message to my friend, okay, I got it. You need to go and do it with the consultant, not with the lawyers, like, because she also has like almost 100 citations less than me and the same response. Your profile is not there. So, like, and she's doing very highly specific research. So I have
yeah,
like,
yeah. Personally, I'm getting a little bit frustrated when people come in that I do not have citations, or my citation is very small, and but the you can also have 400 citation and it would not really speak to anything if the 400 citations were just like, say, review, or the quality of people that are citing your work is questionable, right? So, or even how the citation is used, right? It could be that it was used in the form of literature review arguments, so it really depends. The citation is a two edge. It could be good, it could be bad, but let's not dwell too much on the numbers, because I'm not a big fan of it. So yes, definitely, I'm glad that we were able to iron it out. I was saying that in as much as Rhemma Consult did a lot of great things, one of the things is that we still want to continue doing things better for our clients. So do you want to share what are some things that you think we could do to make our work easier for the next clients that will be coming in?
oh, so I honestly never had any issue with you. I think especially given that we had a deadline to finish, so I feel like you were on my case more than I was. Uh, I have to think. Honestly, I enjoyed it. Like with RFE, I did not have an issue. Maybe, I would say, like for like maybe if you can have a website, because that's something I did not find, like, and like maybe have some more success stories or there, or like some kind of like, information, like, so it's like some kind of information that I don't have to wait for you to meet personally, which I can get directly from the website as well. So that's like something I would say. I know it's a lot of work for you, but
That's legit. I've most of and all of the clients that I've gone through, one of the things they've always said is, well, let's think about centralizing it and getting some websites and all of those. I think it's about time, and it's in the pipeline.
Mhm.
My hope it comes out early, but yeah, that definitely I would agree with you. Yes, that is true. Yes, but the fact that you struggle to find issues is great. It means that in general you did like it. So definitely, that's great. And I'm really excited that everything went through like we expected. And definitely, I'm sure in the next couple of years, you would be adjusting, and then we would be more than happy to help with that as we do both the filing and the adjustment of status. And then at that point, you can do not just for green card, but EAD and the advanced parole. So in case you want to travel back to India and go and find. But I'm curious to ask you this. You said after an approval, you were going to go to Texas. Did
Yeah,
you
I
really
already
go to
went.
Texas?
I already went.
Okay.
I actually went last week and I think I got flu from there.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm happy that you did go to Texas. Okay, that's nice. So I guess this will be we are getting close to the end of the interview, but we're going to open it up within reasonable limits. I would myself or Dr. G will try to answer questions as much as we can, and then try to wrap it up by the end of the hour. So this is when, if you have any questions specifically on EB1, we are more than happy to help. Myself, if it's for me or if it's for Dr. G, we'll go for it.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm really happy for Dr. G's EB1A approval success story. She is my former colleague. So my question is, how important is it to have independent references outside the US? Because I have also noticed when we write to people asking for expert letters or to serve as independent references, they actually don't respond because they don't know us.
Uh,
So
Yes.
in that,
Hi, Shreya. From my experience, I feel like because this was echoed in my RFE as well, the content of the recommendation letter is much more important rather than from where it is coming. Like, uh, that's from my personal experience because as I mentioned, at least for my RFE, nothing went from outside US. It was pretty much everything was from my US. And given my original petition, four were from outside US. So that's just my experience. But I think Emmanuel can talk about like more because he has like more clients. So
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point now.
Yeah. One of the things that I would say is that in as much as we are so excited to use independent letter writers and all of those things, you should bear in mind that the letter could also go against you. Right? I mean, an officer can use the letter against you if the content of the letter is really showed, those kinds of things that show that, oh, maybe Dr. G is doing good work, or maybe Dr. K is doing good work. What I'm trying to say is that if you can get a letter from an expert who is willing to really flesh out the important aspects, than get a letter from somebody who is just going to just say, I think, two or three things that is not really detailed enough, then you are better off taking it from a dependent person, because you don't also want to take it from somebody who is not willing to really flesh out the impact of your work beyond your lab, because then there is no need for that person. And I think, Dr. G, you had one letter like that from an independent who wasn't ready to flesh out. And I told her straight up that this is one that we should not use it. We can't use this letter. It was an independent one. And I told her, I won't use this letter because this letter is just too. And I don't blame them because they don't really know you. I think one of the other things is that there was even one letter writer who asked Dr. G to actually come and present her research to their lab before he or she agreed to write it. So yeah, there's really that issue of getting independent. So my stake on it is, if you can get independent letter writers who would write great letters, not just any like
yeah.
straight up letter, then that's fine. But if you also can get someone who and is an expert and is willing to write a very great letter, that is also perfect. And another time, sometimes the word independent is a little bit tricky, right? So let's say that I don't know you from anywhere. We met at a conference and I got attracted to your presentation. That can be an example of an independent writer, right? So let's not I mean, the cold emails are always going to be hard to respond to because myself, I don't think I respond to all cold emails. So if you can get it with very great letter, that's fine. But if you can't, just stick to the ones that are experts and can write very good letters.
Yeah. And I also want to highlight this, even the letters I got from Harvard, like I don't work in their labs, right? They are in a different department. So I did highlight that, like, irrespective of what lawyer said, I did highlight that in the first paragraph of the letter itself, that okay, we have never worked together in this department, although we know each other from the, like, symposium of the, like, because I met that professor in the symposium at the Harvard itself. So I did say that, like, we never worked together, but, like, still try to show some kind of independence, but still it was like not from outside the US. And just the independent letter I was gonna get, that was from a UK, and that professor had actually cited my work in one of his review paper. So what he did was he only highlighted his review paper and he took out every other thing I wrote. So that, I think, we decided not to go ahead, and instead I sent that letter to somebody in Harvard. They not included discuss that review paper, but also the other studies as well, which we felt was a pretty strong letter.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely. So if you have any other question, I think there's a question in the, okay.
The chat for you. Yeah.
Yeah. For the critical role in distinguished organization, does the reputation of the organization matter, or is it more important that your role is larger to your role is to the larger scientific one? Yeah, I think the reputation of the organization matters, right? Because it's a two-in-one argument. We need to talk about your critical role, and then that critical role is in the distinguished organization. But like I said, Dr. G happened to be in Harvard, and even without any question, Harvard is Harvard. But I myself wasn't in Harvard. I was in University of Nebraska Lincoln, and I was able to make a case that University of Nebraska Lincoln, specifically the center I found myself in, had a reputation that is distinguishable from others. So really, I think that um, I don't know which organization, and you don't have to mention it, but definitely we can always flesh out what it is about that organization that will make it distinguished or reputable. And from there, once we build that, then we talk about the specific project. So to answer your question, both of them matters. We have to show the critical role as well as the fact that that critical role is placed in a very distinguished organization as well.
Yeah.
And
And I
can
would also mention that even I did put like that I'm in Harvard, but I think we really highlighted there how because I'm in a cardiovascular medicine in Brigham and Women Hospital. So we really highlighted, like, the Harvard part was maybe like 2 or 3 lines. Other, like, most of my that critical role, like, or the distinguished organization letter was heavily focused on how cardiovascular medicine is important, like how much grants they get from NIH, or how many publications they have, or how their overall mission is important for US, like, so it just not like the Harvard was also like the cardiovascular medicine as well.
any more question? Oh, yes, I think so. Does O1 visa help in getting the EB1? I think so, it does, because the O1 is the really distinguished immigration category itself. It's really high. But of course, it depends on what arguments were made when the petition was sent. But of course, it will help. Like, assuming somebody had an O1 approved and is thinking of getting EB1, I think that's a good start as against NIW with EB1, because those are really two different things. But the O1, yeah, you're much closer. But again, you'd have to really meet the requirements of the EB1 and how that is really making you be on top of the top 10% in your field. Okay. I think there was a sub question with that question that came. Can you share some more examples of how you could demonstrate this point? Yeah, so Dr. G, do you want to talk about like what are some of the ways we demonstrated your critical role? I know you've already said it, but maybe flesh out for this person. What are some of the critical ways we show the critical role in distinguished organization?
So I think I took like we have like two major federally funded grants going in our lab, and I took to those example, and then instead of comparing me throughout the institution, postdoc of throughout the institution, I just compared myself. So what was not being done in my lab before I joined, and one of them is being like some kind of a data analysis for like mass spectrometry to be specific. So those were the things I highlighted, like how once I joined that lab, I started to doing that kind of data analysis. So now my boss no longer have to pay like, outside bioinformatician, or he doesn't have to go for like, collaborators to help that kind of a work. And in my second project, there was some kind of a virus we were trying to use. It was not commercially available. So we made in-house. And so that I highlighted that how my work helps like speed up the project, like, instead of like, so those were like two major examples I think I used. But I heavily focused on data analysis part, I think so.
Okay, yeah. So I think Dr. G have said it all, really talking about what really makes you distinguished within that roles and what are some of we were really specific about the projects. We first of all spoke specific project 1, specific project 2, and kind of within each specific project, what are the things that makes it critical, and also how does it align with the missions of wherever you may find yourself, and then really going a step forward to show how that is making her be within the top 10%. And then finally, what is it about the units you find yourself in that is having a reputable organization? And there's a question that says whether you are in industry or university while applying for EB1, does that affect your approval of EB1? No, it doesn't. In fact, I want to say that if I don't know if you're a big fan of football. When I say football, I mean soccer, the one we play with our legs. Messi is a player. He got EB1. So Messi is not a researcher. Like, Messi is Messi. So it doesn't, what I'm trying to say is that, and I don't know if you know the wife of Donald Trump, Melanie Trump. She also got EB1. She's not a researcher. She's a modeler. So there are a lot of rumors that you have to be associated to the university system to have a better chance of getting it. But I'm also giving you specific examples of people who had nothing to do with research and even still got it. So for me, I think the question, I'll rephrase it to say that it should be more about, can I really find 3 criterions or criteria within the 10 that I can prove to USCIS that I meet it? And then the next step is highlighting how I meet those 3 criterion makes me fall within the top 10%. I think that should be the most important thing. Regardless of where you find yourself, you can make a case, because if the wife of Donald Trump was able to get EB1, then it's not, the rumor that you need to be in a university system is not entirely true. And if Messi, my favorite and all-time favorite best, over Cristiano Ronaldo also got it, then I think it doesn't really matter whether you are in industry or you're in research. Hopefully I got to answer your question. Probably take one more question and then we'll wrap up from here. So if there is any question, I'm more than happy to answer it now.
Quick question here. Thank you for answering that question. So I just have like another question. I mean, not on the I-140 level, but like once you get your I-140 approved, like how long it takes to get the EAD or go for the another step?
Yeah, that is a very, very good question. So it depends on where you come from, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. So let's say the first thing is before we can even do an adjustment, your date has to be current. So let's assume that your date is current, right? Let's assume that your date is current. If your date is current and you submit it, one of the things that I've seen based on my clients that I've helped in adjustments is nowadays USCIS is doing a very great job of sending EAD on time. Like EAD is taking less than 2 to 3 months when you do the adjustment and you include in it. It's very, very fast. For the EADs, it's becoming very fast. So that I give props up to USCIS. The advanced parole is taking a little bit of time, usually extra 3 months. Sometimes I've had a client that they get what we call the combo card. So the same card it will be for EAD and that same card will be for the advanced parole. But I would say that for EAD itself, if you usually after we submit it by 3 months we get response. It's very fast. The green card itself will take a while, but the EAD within the 3 months. And usually sometimes if by 3 months we've not heard, I usually say reach out to your Senate officers or the congressmen. Once they reach out to the office, if your number is current, they don't mind just issuing it out. So the EAD is really fast. But the most important thing is that your date, your priority date should be current. So for example, with Dr. G, until her priority date is current, we won't be able to go forward with the adjustment. But once it becomes current and we get a go ahead, for the EAD, less than 3 months is good. There was even one client that it took 2 weeks because that client already had the biometric in the system. And so it took 2 weeks. But I've realized that if you don't have the biometric, sometimes it will take 3 months and usually a month after the biometrics. With the biometric takes about 14 days. So now the process is getting streamlined to USCIS, from USCIS,
Yeah, sure. Just to clarify, so the EAD you can apply for it before 485 filing or after 485 filing?
Sorry, I was lost. I was reading a text from my brother. So sorry. Can you repeat the question?
So my question was, can you apply for the EAD before you file the I-485, or you have to wait until you file the 485 and then go for the EAD?
So if can I ask, are you from where are you from? Maybe let me
India.
ask first. So unfortunately, if you're from India, you can't even do the EAD together with the I-140 because currently it's the EAD is not current from where you
Yeah,
come
like
from.
2
So
years,
yeah,
2021
so
or something like that.
yeah. So it's really about but if you weren't from India, for those of you who are wondering, and your priority date is current, then you can do all of it concurrently. You can do the I-140, I-765, I-31, I-131, and then I-485 all together. If you are going for EB1 and you don't come from India, China, Mexico, Philippines, but if you're coming from India, then you really have to wait for the dates to be current before we will be able to move ahead with it. Yeah. So hopefully that answered your question. And I think it's 3 minutes past when we started. But in general, hopefully you got your questions answered. And we look forward to either hearing from you one way or the other. And Dr. G, thank you so much for your time. And I just hope that this will be the beginning of our relationship and not the end of the relationship. So look forward to working with you all, and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.